Very excited about our webinar tonight. This is always a fun webinar to do, kind of talk about practice certification, and I'm excited for Michelle and Dr. Grant to be here with me tonight so that they can share their expertise and talk a little bit about the changes that we've implemented here in the last 6 to 8 months and how things are going and just how this can be such a great thing for your practice to pursue. I'm going to go ahead. I do want to, while we're waiting and see if Dr. Grant is able to jump back on, part of our presentation tonight is going to be interactive. So I know that everybody watching has a cell phone or an iPad or tablet or something handy near them. If you will go ahead and either scan that QR code that's on your screen or jump onto slido.com and put that key number in, you're going to join tonight's presentation. And as we go through and we come across some interactive slides, there'll be questions, there'll be parts where we want you to get involved as well. So make sure that you go ahead and do that. I'll leave that up for a minute while people go ahead and do that, and then we'll get started. Dr. Grant, I don't see you, but
can you hear me? I'm actually
figure out where
showing
you are.
you. Yeah, I'm on.
I'm going to bring you on stage. There you are, Dr. Grant. You're back.
Yep. It was the hotel internet that blipped, and I got back on and could see you and hear you.
I'm glad you put something in the chat. So, all right. Well, we are going to go ahead and get started. In the interest of time, I want to make sure that we have time for questions. I know this topic can be really fun to talk about, and I do want this to be an interactive, very lighthearted, casual conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is our fear-free webinar on fear-free veterinary practice certification, a journey to better veterinary care and practice excellence. I am Jennifer Merlo. I am the Director of Veterinary Affairs for Fear-Free. I'm coming to you from York, South Carolina, not to be confused with York, Pennsylvania. And I've been with the Fear-Free team for about 2.5 years now. As you'll notice during this webinar, your camera will be off and you will be muted, but feel free to put questions in our chat. Our veterinary practice certification coordinator, Lisa, will be monitoring the chat throughout the webinar and kind of continuing to keep conversation going there. So if you have questions as we're going through things, feel free to pop those in the chat. If Lisa is able to answer them, she'll go ahead. Or if she feels like it's a question that the whole group would benefit from, she may hold that to the end when we do a little question and answer period. I am really excited by the two fabulous co-presenters I have tonight. I am joined by Dr. Nora Grant and Michelle Krasicki and I'm going to let them do the justice of introducing themselves because I think they're fantastic and I could probably go on and on and on about them. But I love to hear them brag on themselves a little bit too. So I'm going to hand it over to Michelle. Michelle, if you want to tell us a little bit about your journey with Fear-Free, how you came to be involved with Fear-Free, and my question for both of you as you're introducing yourselves is, what do you see for the future of Fear-Free?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Merlo. Again, my name is Michelle Krasicki from Minnesota, lovingly known as MKA from Minnesota because of that. I am a credentialed veterinary technician in the state of Minnesota. I've been doing this for a really long time now. I was lucky enough to be a relief technician after years in private practice, emergency, academia, education, all these things. And during that time, I sat on the executive board for the Minnesota Association of Veterinary Technicians and the National Association for Vet Techs. And one of your jobs when you sit on those boards is to be the moderator for CE events. And at that time, I moderated for the founder of Fear-Free, and I was immediately captivated. And I knew at that point in time, that's what I had to do, was I had to follow in Marty's footsteps and bring this to all my practices. And so as I've continued growing and doing what I love, first in Minnesota and now across the country, I bring Fear-Free with me everywhere. One of my favorite things I love to tell people is nothing warmed my heart more than when my daughter, who is now 14, at about 10 years old, recognized on TV that a dog was experiencing FAS and blurted out, "That's not very fear-free." So, the big take home, I think, from all of this is that it's not really just a concept. It kind of becomes a culture and a lifestyle. So everything is fear-free in my home. And then the question again was, where do I see fear-free going?
Yep. What is the
Oh,
future of fear-free?
the future of fear-free is really helping people to understand that we can make that human-animal bond so much stronger and so much more meaningful by being able to preserve it when we recognize that pain isn't just physical.
Love that. Thank you, Michelle. And Dr. Grant, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be a part of our team here at Fear Free, and what you see as the future of Fear Free.
So I feel like an elder in this process because I actually remember Fear Free in its very beginning days with Dr. Becker. And so my practice background, I'm a veterinarian. And I had 25 years of practice, which was both mixed animal, large animal, small animal general, relief, emergency, kind of like Michelle. I've been there, done all of it. But I did work with industry in the last 15 years of my career, of my past career. And of that part, with working with SEVA, when SEVA became one of the first sponsors for Fear Free with the pheromones, I was a part of that team. And then the veterinary team for SEVA were the ones that actually went out into the field and did the in-clinic certifications in 2018, started in April 2018, doing in-clinic certifications and spending time with the clinics in that last part of the process. And then I've seen the growth of Fear Free through the next few years. I retired last year from SEVA, but as we veterinarians don't ever do, we never really retire. So I knew, kind of like Michelle, once I had worked with Fear Free, been in the clinic, seen what the potential was for this wonderful organization, I said to myself, I want to work with them when I'm retired. So thankfully that came true in the form of being able to be a practice consultant for Fear Free now and able to do the virtual type of meetings and also recertifications. And as far as the future, what I see is growth because the sky's the limit, and there's so many exciting changes going on with Fear Free, which I know you'll talk about some. But I think it's bringing something to the profession that is very much needed. Clinics are starting to grab onto that concept. I hear more about it. I see more about it, and we're busy. So I think the growth is an exciting thing to bring this message to all pet owners, shelters. I keep seeing more certifications added to the categories out there. I have a horse now, but I still haven't had time to do the horse equine Fear Free stuff. But it's on my list. It's on that list of things to do in retirement. So I'm excited.
That's great. So excited to have both of you here. As I said, a little background on me for our attendees tonight. So as I said, I joined the Fear Free team about 2.5 years ago. I, like Dr. Grant, I'm also a veterinarian. I graduated from Ohio State in 2004. And much to my dismay, I thought I had my whole life planned out at that point, as we all do when we graduate from school. And I went into equine practice thinking that was what I was going to do forever. And I did that for about 3-4 years. I did an internship and a residency, and then switched over to small animal after finishing all of that. And then moved to the Charlotte area and started in small animal practice and did a variety of general practice, emergency practice. And then around 2016, when Fear Free came out, was when I had sort of hit that proverbial wall of being burnt out and just kind of wasn't really enjoying my field anymore, didn't really like my career. And then was introduced to Fear Free at a staff meeting at the practice I was working at, and just was, in hook, line, and sinker, drank the proverbial Kool-Aid and was like, this is the better way to do things. Like, how do I do this? How do I make everything I do about this? Ended up opening a practice of my own, which was the first fear-free certified practice in the state of North Carolina. And that's how I got to know the team at Fear-Free. And I was lucky enough to be asked to join the team a few years ago, and have really just enjoyed being here and seeing the crazy amount of growth that we've done in the last couple of years, and just knowing the things that are coming down the pipeline. It's going to be really exciting. So I think it's great that our team of presenters tonight all have practical in-practice experience, and now we're kind of on the other side and encouraging people to pursue this as they go. So we're going to get started. As I said, if you do have your phone or tablet near you or some way to get on here, we are going to do some interactive slides. So you definitely want to scan this QR code or get on slido.com and join us. And we're going to start off with a nice open-ended question, which is really what do you all see as sort of the hot topics in your practice, or really in vet med as a whole right now in our industry? What are we seeing out there? What are people talking about? And I promise this is all going to relate back. We're going to make this all come together. This isn't just my random brain giving you a question at night. But really, what do you guys see out there? Michelle, Dr. Grant, what are you hear from industry professionals, pet owners that you talk to, practices as you're looking at them and observing and consulting with them? What do you guys hear?
Lack of staff, lack of team. Like, you don't have enough people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that carries over from the days of COVID, when we were short-staffed and having to do things differently. I know sometimes I hear that clients are angry, that their expectations are different. They're a little more demanding, and I think everybody's kind of in this state of being stressed.
Yeah, so definitely. And then that lends I see the words on the screen that it happens like that, lends itself towards burnout. And burnout is costly to the practice, because then people aren't doing their job as well, and patients aren't happy, and people aren't happy. And yeah, I mean, definitely. I think there's also a large concern out there about the number of veterinary practices that might be closing because they have owners that have no one to hand it down to anymore. You know, they've got no up and coming. So, and again, that falls into all those things.
Yep. Yeah.
Staff retention.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I love about using Slido is that as people are answering, if people continue to like answer the same thing over and over again, the response will get bigger on our screen. So if you notice, burnout kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's just like in the middle of the screen. So 100%, I think that's the thing that we've been hearing about at conferences, is this idea of burnout. And like Michelle and both Michelle and Dr. Grant said, retention, recruitment, staffing, right? So I promise we are going to come back to this. I know Lisa is vigorously keeping notes to let me know what the hot topics were, so that at the end, we're going to circle back on this. So tonight, our objectives are really quite simple. We want to go through some of the common questions and myths that we hear about fear-free veterinary practice certification. And we want to tell you all about it, what it requires, what it costs, what the benefit is, and what the process is like. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the perks of becoming a fear-free certified veterinary practice, both kind of the tangible perks, but also those that are like business oriented and customer service oriented. And then we want to leave time for question and answers. That's always my favorite part of this webinar, is really hearing from attendees. What do you want to know? What are those burning questions that you have? As I said earlier, Lisa is going to be monitoring our chat. So if you do come up with questions, put them in the chat. We will either get to them live, or Lisa will be able to answer them in the chat itself. Because this is a live webinar, and because technology does not like to work in those settings, I am going to have to pause and stop sharing this screen and pull up this video on another screen. So in the meantime, Michelle and Dr. Grant, what do you hope that our attendees will get out of tonight's webinar?
Ooh, I hope in the question and answer section, they're completely transparent and honest, and they ask those hard questions that we know are out there, but people, and I'm sure Dr. Grant, you would agree with me, people pull us aside to ask them, you know, like whisper them, because everybody's thinking it, but no one wants to say it. So I'm hoping those questions get asked, because really do want to let you know the kind of the truth behind it, the reality behind it, but kind of the ease behind getting there too.
I know, because we hear so many times that this is too hard, it takes too much time. You know, we've got our habits established already on how to do stuff. And my generation thinks, oh, well, we've done this way for years and it's worked. I mean, those are the kind of the hard things that we come up against. So if that's what you're struggling with, you know, tonight, please let us know. And we hope to dispel those myths for you.
Absolutely.
All right, wonderful. So if you've never had the opportunity to go to a fear-free certified veterinary practice before, I'm going to show you a short video that's going to take you inside of one. So it's going to kind of give you that experience of what it looks like, what it sounds like, and hopefully what it feels like. I will say this video was shot at Latah Creek Animal Hospital in Spokane, Washington. And I think it's an example of a highly committed, very well implemented practice. They've been doing this for a number of years. They're one of our original certified practices. And I say that because I want to point out that fear-free certified practices come in all shapes and sizes. And there may be things that you see in this video that you may think to yourself, there's no way we could do that. We don't have that ability. Know that this is just one example of what a fear-free certified practice looks like. And you don't have to fit into this particular mold, but it is a great example of one of our practices. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear.
For many, the prospect of taking a trip to the vet's office can be anxiety-inducing for both the pet and their mom and dad. However, for those visiting a fear-free certified practice, the process doesn't just look different, it sounds and feels different for everyone.
Welcome to Latah Creek Animal Hospital. Hi, I'm Dr. Marty Becker, America's veterinarian and the founder of Fear Free. Together, we're going to take a short tour through this practice to see what it means to be a fear-free certified practice. As you take this short journey, I want you to look around. You're going to feel, you're going to hear, you're going to see, and by extension, you're going to feel the differences of what a fear-free visit at a fear-free certified practice is like.
Hey, Dad, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but you're actually needed in the back right now.
What?
So,
You sure?
if you don't mind.
Oh, I better if they want. Okay. See you, Mikkel. Thanks.
All right. Do you mind if I go ahead and take them around?
Go ahead. Thanks.
All right. Hi, I'm Mikkel Becker. I'm Dr. Marty Becker's daughter. And without further ado, let's begin our tour. Oh, hey, how did you end up out here? Well, that's okay. Did you know in fear-free certified practices, you might have the option of bypassing the lobby altogether and using an alternative entrance? And that will take you directly into an exam room that's already pre-staged with creature comforts to welcome your animal inside. So with that said, why don't you join me for our first exam? Exam rooms in fear-free certified practices are all about creating a sense of safety and calm for the pet and for their people. Take a moment to really look around. Do you see the treats that we keep at the ready? Take a moment to listen. Do you hear the music? Calming, right? With all of this going on, you may forget what we're actually doing here, which is an exam. But if you look right behind me, you'll see Cutie Pie is having a visit with Dr. Megan, going through an exam at Cutie Pie's pace and keeping him in a position and place where he's comfortable and relaxed. With fear-free, less is oftentimes more when it comes to handling. And the best part of all of this is, this doesn't just start and end in the exam room. This thoughtful approach is found all throughout the hospital. So with this said, let's go ahead and take a visit over to our feline friends and see what a fear-free exam room looks like for them. Here in the kitty exam room, you'll find any number of elements that are set to calm and help the cat relax and for it to feel a little bit more like home. Right now, you'll see Flopsy has taken advantage of a vertical space and also has an area where she can den down and hide. And she can also be accessed through that door, so she can be where she feels comfortable. Some cats may prefer to stay in their carrier, and that's totally fine. We want them to go where they feel most comfortable. Other cats may be really curious and they want to explore the space, maybe look at the fish distractions. We also may find things like different toys and, of course, lots of tasty treats for the cat to enjoy. Fear-free measures are really important, not only for pets, but also for people. And that's because when pets feel safe, they're actually safer, easier, and more enjoyable to handle. Fear-free measures are also important not only during the exam, but for any procedure that the pet may have and for any overnights that they may have at the hospital as well. So we've covered a lot in the exam rooms. Let's go ahead and head back into treatment. We'll check on Dad and wrap up our tour. Fear-free is better medicine. As our friend, Dr. Steve Ettinger, who literally wrote the book on internal medicine, has said, you can practice good medicine, but not great medicine without fear-free. So Dad, we just got done with our tour. I see you are with Mr. Cutie Pie.
Well, you know what makes me very happy is we got a little bit of scare with him, but you know what? He's doing really good. I've been getting a bunch of kisses from him, and he's going to go home and get to see his mother. So Cutie Pie, thank you for the sweet kisses. Listen, everybody's going to have more questions, and if you have more questions, we're a call or click away. Go to fearfreepets.com for more information.
All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that little video, and it gave you a little insight into what it's like in a fear-free certified practice. Going back to Slido, I am kind of curious who in our audience, what practices have considered veterinary practice certification? Or maybe you're already enrolled and you're here tonight to learn a little bit more about the process itself, or you're just not sure. Maybe you're unclear as to whether your practice leadership has ever investigated this or not. Oh, several that are enrolled or in the process of becoming certified. Love that. Dr. Grant and Michelle, anything that jumped out at you from that video from Latah Creek?
I think for me, it's also about not just the structure of the clinic, because some clinics can't change their structure as much, but it's also about the handling. The treats are part of it. The space and where the animals can be and be fear-free is part of it. But the actual hands-on of touching the animal and how we touch the animal and not use the terms like restraint and things like that, that part of it too in the exam is very, very important. I know this clinic and I've watched them handle the pets. So I know that they are doing the appropriate fear-free type of handling for the pets.
I think it's pretty amazing that even though they were being taped for something that is going to be, in posterity, everybody had really soft and loose body language, which really speaks to how committed they are, because that lowered FAS is all the way transcribed through the people, even though they're on film, which I don't know if I could do that, honestly.
Or the pets with all other people in the room.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, it speaks to how calming overall their practice is.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump right into some of these misconceptions. And, when I was putting this together and I asked Michelle and Dr. Grant to be a part of this, one of the things I asked them was, what are those questions you get from industry professionals, pet owners, veterinary professionals as it concerns veterinary practice certification? And Michelle and Dr. Grant, they did not hold back. They gave me their lists of all the things, and we want to address them. We want to go through a few of them because some of them, Dr. Grant and Michelle have already even mentioned in just talking about things, but we really want to address some of these because it's things we hear all the time. So one of the first ones is it's just a moneymaker. There's no real change. And that came from you, Michelle. You brought that up.
Yeah.
How do you respond when people say that to you?
Well, I try to stifle the eye roll, which you guys all just saw, because my face will give it away. I actually, as a relief technician, I had this said to me by several different practice owners, not just one person. And, what I have to tell them is that it's only going to be a change if you want it to be a change. But I could also tell them that professionally, not only did my own business grow from being fear-free, but those practices that maybe, before clinic certification, but just had their staff trained, followed in the ways, they actually became more profitable. And there is data out there to support this. On average, if you take a look at those fear-free practices, they're booking out not weeks ahead of time, months ahead of time. They have a waiting list of people. And again, when it comes to change, you have to be willing to do that. And if you're not willing to make that change, if you're willing to stay in that mindset, then it's not going to be a moneymaker for you. And at the same time, then are you still assuming that your patients don't need pain medication post surgery, like when I started 20 something years ago? So
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think you bring up a really good point, is that it really is a culture change, and it's a commitment, and it creates a positive workplace environment, which then addresses sort of that core issue that we see popping up in veterinary industry, that burnout. We really see that turnaround in these practices. Additionally, like you mentioned, we have firm data that shows that it is profitable, right? These practices are seeing higher revenue. In fact, our sales team has put together some great one-page handouts about why fear-free makes sense. CENTS, see what we did there. And we also have one about pet professionals. So we can provide all of that to you if you are trying to talk to your leadership in your practice about why this is a really good idea, not just from a business standpoint, but it's the right thing to do for your patients. And I promise you, it will bring you clients that will be bonded to your practice because they see the difference in the way you treat their pets. And those are the pet owners that come back time and time and time again, like Michelle said. Along those lines, this is one we hear a lot. It costs too much. And this is one that Dr. Grant had brought up. We hear that over and over again, and that it's costs too much, not just from a practice certification enrollment standpoint, but maybe in the long run for investing in things like additional supplies, treats, things like that. I will say from a cost standpoint of doing the actual practice certification process, for your average practice, say a 3-doctor practice with maybe 15 to 20 staff members, it's going to end up costing you $4 a day to become a certified practice. That's the cost of a Starbucks drink. And we all know, we can be real with each other. We're veterinary professionals. We drink Starbucks, probably more than one a day. So it's not a huge commitment if you look at it that way. It is going to be so beneficial for your practice in the long run. Clients don't want to come back or reschedule. Dr. Grant, what do you think about that one?
I know initially, as practices are trying to start implementing fear-free, they may hear some of this because no one likes change, and we're all busy, schedules are busy, and the we just want to get it done right now mentality is still there. But I think in the communication with the client and how that's done about why we're doing fear-free or why we don't want to increase the stress and anxiety of this pet, and it's in the best interest of the pet to do that, that most clients will come around. It takes a little bit of communication sometimes. And, to be honest, you may have one or two few that don't want to do that. But I think in the long run, for you to be able to be that happy person that's stress-free and not be upset about how you had to treat an animal that day, I think it's worth it for your own personal stress level. I think it's worth it for the staff stress level. And over time, that's what you will see. But it's the best thing for the pet. And that's what we have to keep forefront of our mind. The vast majority of clients will say, sure, let's do what we need to do here and get some, drugs on board, maybe come back, reschedule, back off a little bit, those type of things. So I think I see vast majority of buy-in. It's only the occasional ones that will say, no, I don't really want to do that. Mm-hmm. So for the practices that are willing to kind of stick to their guns, they see the benefits of it.
Yeah. Michelle, as you've been in various practices as a relief technician. What has your experience been with that?
It really comes down to communication and education. If you take the time to explain it to the owners and relate it to their pet's well-being, I would say 90% of them are receptive to this. When you think about it, if you bring a dog in to get groomed and the groomer can't groom it because it's aggressive or scared or whatnot, they don't do it. They send the animal home and say, come back, and owners say, okay, and they reschedule in 4 weeks. So I don't understand why we're allowing ourselves to be pushed into doing things we know are not medically appropriate, but are not conceptually appropriate either. And typically those clients that do leave, if you look at it, and again, relief I mean, Minnesota is not the biggest area, but it's not the smallest. They become clinic jumpers, to be honest with you. They're just going for the best deal, the best, it's whatever fits them at that time. And we know that's not the premise of Fear Free. Now, do we need to make exceptions? Absolutely. But these people aren't looking for what is necessarily in the best interest. They're looking for what they need at that time. So, again, those practices that might not be Fear Free certified, but are practicing that way, they have that wait list. They have weeks out booking. The data speaks more strongly than, I guess, the excuses.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think along those lines, there's been this common thought that Fear Free takes too much time. I think I get that often, like, well, how are they seeing so many patients in a day? And I know that at one point we actually did time it to see the difference between a traditional exam, not using fear-free techniques, and one that did use fear-free techniques. And it was a matter of seconds, guys. Like, we're not talking a half an hour difference. It comes down to seconds. What do you, Dr. Grant, when you're evaluating practices for certification, do you see a major difference in the amount of time it takes them to see their patients?
Certainly that depends on procedures, but if you're trying to stick to a strict schedule, like we were cramming clients into rooms every 15 minutes, this does take a little bit more time, just sometimes because there's more communication. The benefits of that extra little bit of time and the communication is huge when you've got pets that are not escalating their fear, anxiety, and stress. They're going to be better pets in the long run. You've got client retention, staff happy. So all those benefits are there. And I always kind of look at the big picture. But in terms of time, most of the videos and things that I evaluate, you're somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes on these exams. And a lot of that is spent in communication with the client, which is better for everybody.
Yeah, I would
Absolutely.
add that you can still do 15-minute appointments with Fear Free, but it's where you're utilizing your doctor and your team. That whole exam time, that whole appointment time is going to be 30 minutes, but the doctor's time is going to be 15 minutes because you're utilizing your other members of your support team to help with that communication, help with that education. So, and I think it's going to be somewhere on here too, that it's going to be too expensive. It's going to cost us too much. We aren't going to be able to see as many clients. No, that's also not a truth. And for those high FAS patients that have learned that this is not scary now, I would argue that those are appointments that 8 years ago took me an hour, and now literally it's like 12 minutes because this pet is so happy to see us, so unfearful, that I'm spending more time just trying to get the owner to pay attention because the dog's running around the exam room with a toy and the cat's rolling off the table in catnip and those type of things. So yeah, it can be done. You can stick to a smaller schedule, but you have to be realistic in the amount of time you need to get everything done, not just in a room and out of a room.
And you're also getting more procedures done actually in the long run.
Yeah, you are.
For sure. And I think this leads really well into that next misconception that Fear Free is just about giving treats. And don't get me wrong, when I was in practice, this was one of my favorite things, was being like the treat giver. I'm a foodie, so I just assume that everybody else's love language is food as well, including my patients. So like, I love giving them treats, but it's so much more than that. And you guys already kind of alluded to that. What I love about Fear Free is the techniques and the education that everyone is learning empowers the whole team. And so you now have this team approach to everything, instead of it being a, well, this is like the doctor does everything and then this person is over here not really helping out, but everybody now has a say in what's going on with these patients. When I was in practice, I leaned so heavily on my staff to like really be talking with owners, educating owners. It just changes, again, that whole culture of the practice so that it is embedded in everything that you do. It changes how you're talking to your clients, and then they relate to you in a much better way. They're more likely to okay treatment plans. They're more likely to want to do diagnostics. Again, they're more likely to come back with their pet. So it truly is a change in mindset and culture. It just happens to incorporate things like peanut butter and tiki cat treats, and other yummy things for your patients, which, like I always say, if I went to the doctor and they gave me an ice cream sundae while they did everything, like who would that hurt? That would be great, right?
I think too, like anybody that's ever worked with service dogs or police dogs or working dogs, that is one of the things you often can't do is you can't give them treats. But they have absolute trust in their handler. They have absolute trust in their owner that whatever you're doing is going to be beneficial. And it shows how that training and that handling and that trust can work without giving treats.
Absolutely. Two other ones that we hear a lot of: clients don't want to watch procedures. They don't want to see things happening in front of them, and they don't want to drug their pets. I think, again, we make a lot of assumptions about our clients that are not necessarily true. It's like going back to that clients don't want to come back or reschedule. I think what we're seeing nowadays is that pet owners consider their pets part of their family. They are the starter kind of children in the family. And I always say that I wouldn't take my kids to the pediatrician and just sort of hand them off to somebody and be like, see ya, like no big deal. Our pet owners nowadays are more educated. They want to see what's happening. I think, again, it comes down to communication and education, asking them if they're comfortable. But more times than not, you will find that owners do want to be present with their pets for a lot of things. And there's a lot of studies showing the benefits of that for the pets and the owners and the staff. Along those lines, injuries, and this kind of plays right into it. I hear this often. Both Dr. Grant and Michelle brought this up, that there is this idea that with fear-free, there's more injuries. I always like to paint the picture that I think when people think of fear-free, they just imagine people in a room and there's a dog running around and no one is touching it and people are asking it to nicely sit for a vaccine, and it's just sort of this like chaotic scene, and that's not what it is at all. There's an idea that we can't use muzzles. That is not true. We are not anti-muzzle. We are not anti-restraint at Fear-Free. We are pro-gentle control and using respect for what the patient is telling us, and doing it in a manner so that they are not afraid and they are able to let us know when something is becoming too much for them. And I think those are the things that we have ignored in the past. And when we ignore that, they have no other alternative but to become aggressive with us, which then leads to injuries. We have a lot of preliminary data to show that fear-free certified practices have less injuries than practices who do not follow fear-free techniques. So that's really exciting. I don't know any practice owner or practice manager who's not going to be excited if you say to them, this is going to be less injuries, less workers' comp claims, happier staff. I don't know anybody that would say, I don't want to hear about this. What do you guys think, Michelle, Dr. Grant?
I think, and because we have so much training in fear-free on the basics of behavior, we have to learn body language before you can ever really start. That's just, necessary. And so you're empowering your staff to know what the animals are telling you, that communication, which means you're not going to reach in and automatically grab that little chihuahua that's sitting back there cowering in the back of a cage. You're going to coax it. You're going to talk to it. You're going to use towels. You're going to use all the techniques that we know will work with that poor little fearful dog who would only have reached out and bitten you because it was so fearful. If we can reduce all of that fear and anxiety because we're reading the body language and we're doing certain handling techniques, then that dog comes around. And so, yeah, absolutely, we see less injuries.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that we heard a lot of up until recently was this process is too complicated. And I'm not going to lie, it was. And I think that one was true for a bit. But we have worked really hard at Fear Free to make this process a lot simpler. Our process now is just a few steps. We've taken away some of those barriers that we used to have, right? Now, if you want to become a fear-free certified veterinary practice and you look over the standards, which by the way, we're going to touch on those, but those are public access. They are on our website. You do not have to enroll before you get a chance to look at the standards. And I highly encourage anyone who's considering this, go ahead, download them, print them out, look at them with your hospital leadership, go through them, because I will bet you are incorporating a lot of them into your everyday practice and you will be able to become a certified practice. So you go ahead, you enroll. And the nice thing now is when you enroll in becoming a certified practice, you automatically receive fear-free memberships for all of your staff right then and there. We want you to do this as a team project all together. Again, we keep talking about this team culture, and that starts right from the beginning of this process. So when your practice enrolls, you get fear-free veterinary memberships for all of your staff so that as a team, you guys can go through and all become individually certified. You'll go through and work through those standards, start incorporating them into what you're doing. There is this requirement to write SOPs. I promise you they're not as scary as people think they are. I think that's the thing that people are always like, oh my gosh, I have to write these SOPs. Again, the nice thing about this revised process is we have amazing fear-free account managers, some of which are on this webinar tonight, that will help your team through this process. They will review SOPs for you. They will give you feedback as you're going through the process of things that they have seen in their time working with Fear Free, what we're looking for, and they'll help you. We don't want you guys feeling like you're doing this on your own. Once those SOPs and medical records are submitted and they're reviewed, then we do want to see you in practice. We want to see you hands-on with patients, watching you put Fear Free into use every day. So that may be a virtual visit, that may be evaluation of some recorded visits, depending on where you might be in the world. Michelle just recently did one for us where the practice was on the other side of the globe. So doing a virtual visit was not going to be feasible. But we want to see that what you're putting on paper, you're actually putting into practice. I have these steps on this slide in a kind of linear one after the other, but they can be done all together kind of congruently. You can be doing them as you're working through getting your staff certified. You can be working on those SOPs. Don't feel like you have to do one and then move on to the next and then move on to the next. Again, our fear-free account managers check in with their practices every 30 days just to say, hey, how's it going? What do you need from me? We are here to see you succeed. And we really want to have as many certified practices out there to make sure that pets are getting fear-free care no matter where they go. Dr. Grant, Michelle, what do you guys think about our new process as it compares to what it used to be? What are you seeing the feedback from our practices that you're evaluating?
I love our new process. I'm not going to lie. I can't even sugarcoat it. Like, it is so much easier on our side, but I know it's easier on the clinic side because the quality of the materials that I'm reviewing is so much better. And instead of being bogged down with, checking all these boxes, they really are utilizing their critical thinking and problem solving to say, how can I do this in my clinic? I mean, as you alluded to, I just got done doing that one halfway across the globe. That was amazing. They took an old, like, one bedroom house they were running as a vet clinic and turned it into a vet clinic. It was, it was awesome. So I really do like the new process.
I used to get very confused when I would do presentations and try to educate on fear-free and the certification process. And there was this chart that was this algorithm that we tried to explain it. I couldn't understand it, and in trying to be able to explain it to other clinics. And this is so much simpler in the process. And then those of us that were evaluating, like Michelle said, on the back end, it was difficult in the past to do that and time consuming, but I really love what we're doing now. It does make it so much easier.
Yeah. So enrollment, who are we talking to? Who can enroll in this process? Currently, I will say our standards that we have that are available on our website are really geared towards general practices. When we launched practice certification, that was really who we were looking at. That being said, we've had a number of emergency practices, mobile practices, feline only. We have a couple specialty, namely pain clinics and a behavior specialty center, and high volume spay and neuter practices that have achieved practice certification using the general practice standards and just sort of thinking outside that box and just how does it relate to their practice. That being said, having been in lots of different types of practices throughout my career, I do realize that there's some nuances between general practice, emergency practice, specialty practice, house call practice. So we are working to create those standards that are really streamlined to those different sectors of veterinary medicine. Currently, again, our practice certification is very focused on companion animal practice, but we do hope to launch other types of practices as we're kind of building out what animals fear-free is reaching. But hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have our house call practice certification standards up and available, and our emergency and urgent care standards as well. Both of those are currently in beta testing with some real life practices to see what it's like. Again, because things on paper and real life don't always match up, I like to make sure that what we're asking of our practices is feasible out there in the real world. I will say though, those practice certification standards are available online. Download them. If you read through them and you're like, hey, we can do this in our practice, enroll. There's nothing that's going to stop you from enrolling as long as you can implement those standards. The enrollment process is easy. It's on our website. You go to fearfreepets.com, you go to the practice certification page, and it says it right there, purchase now. That's all you have to do to enroll. You'll enter some information, and then you'll get an email from one of our team members giving you all of the next steps that you have to be aware of. So there's no longer that eligibility requirements, figuring out how many people are certified, any of that. Just go ahead and purchase that product. The $1 million question, no pun intended, how much does it cost? Again, like Dr. Grant said, there used to be a lot of calculating to figure out what a practice would have to pay every year. We've made that really simple now. We have 4 tiers of pricing, and it's based on the number of full-time equivalent vets that are on staff. And full-time equivalent, as it's defined by Fear-Free, is working more than 35 hours a week. This, when you buy this product, again, it gives you memberships and renewals for all of your staff within that price. So it is not this plus something else where there's no hidden costs or anything like that. If you are a 3-doctor practice, you are going to pay $1,500 a year. That includes all of your staff. That includes part-time staff, full-time staff, seasonal staff, relief staff. Anybody that works in your hospital can get a Fear-Free membership. They will get the veterinary certification with that. There are discounts on the pet professional certifications if your staff members are interested in that. But included in the cost is that veterinary certification. And this, like any of our other memberships, it renews annually, again, based on how many doctors are on your staff at the time. So if your practice is growing and you have more doctors, you're going to kind of go up on that tier. If for whatever reason, you've maybe lost some doctors, you're in flux, you're going to go down on that tier. So we evaluate it every year. So what does that mean in the real world, right? So let's say you're a practice, you have 2 doctors and about 13 support staff, and you decide, you know, maybe one of your staff members says, I'm really interested in this Fear-Free thing. You decide, okay, everybody can do Fear-Free. We're just going to do individual memberships for now. So you buy 15 memberships. It's going to cost you about $2,500 to do that first year. And then that next year, you're going to renew them, and it's going to be close to $1,800 in renewals. Over, you know, grand scheme of things, not a huge amount of money, but certainly something that you want to be aware of. Now, let's say you were a practice that knew about Fear-Free practice certification, and you as a team said, we're making a commitment that Fear-Free is the way we're going to do everything in our practice from day one, going forward, every interaction. You're going to pay $1,500 to do the same thing that other practice is doing, but you just saved yourself $1,000 in that first year. And then subsequent years, you're saving yourself $200 to $300 a year, which as a previous practice owner, that's important to know. So I think it really is beneficial if this is something that you're considering for your practice. If you are part of the practice leadership, if you're considering opening a practice and you are like, this is how I want things to be for my staff, for my patients, for my pet owners that are coming in, I strongly encourage you to consider practice certification. Michelle, Nora, reactions to our new pricing and how that compares?
I love it. Again, it's simplified.
Yeah, love at first sight, basically. I always think of things like an investment because I was a practice owner and I go, I bought an ultrasound machine. That was a big outlay of cost at the beginning. And how many years would it take me to recoup that amount of money and actually make a profit on that? And this is a drop in the bucket in comparison to that. I mean, and I was a single veterinarian in practice, that $775, I'd have done that in a heartbeat, 20 years ago. So, yeah.
And I think it's important too that while you cannot call yourself a fear-free certified practice yet, you can start identifying your team as fear-free certified professionals and start to build that into your culture, start to build that into your communications, your marketing, your relationships, so that by the time you do get your certification, your clients are going to say, wait, you weren't already, because it's become so much of the norm. So I think that's important to note also.
Yeah, for sure. Touching on those standards, like I said, if anybody had been looking at practice certification previously, our standards were lengthy. It was a big document, and that sometimes overwhelmed people that were interested. We've really worked hard to condense down our standards. We now have 36 mandatory standards. We had a great advisory group that looked at it and said, what does it mean to really be a certified veterinary practice? What is important? What is going to shine through? What's going to set these practices apart? It's broken down into 4 different categories. Again, these are available on our website and can be easily downloaded and looked through. I do want to make a few things apparent because there are some that sometimes people want to know about before they make that commitment. I mentioned this before, SOPs are required to showcase how you're implementing fear-free. Again, they're not as scary as they seem. Our account managers will help you. We have great templates. We can help walk you through that whole situation, kind of show you how you're already doing it. We just need to put it on paper. We do require that our fear-free certified practices refer to positive reinforcement animal trainers only. And that's because we want to make sure that these pets that we're working with, that they are going to other fear-free professionals or positive reinforcement professionals so that all the good work we're doing in that veterinary practice is not being undone by some negative reinforcement in other areas. So we do require that. We do check trainer lists. If you are not, or if you're unsure of what your trainer is doing, talk to us. We have great trainers on staff. Lisa, our veterinary practice certification coordinator, is a fear-free certified animal trainer, and she will happily look into your trainer that you're using, give you some feedback, make some recommendations. If you are not using positive reinforcement trainers, we want to help you get to that place where you are. We do prohibit our fear-free certified veterinary practices from performing elective declaws. So this is not, if it is a medical necessity, there is a disease process going on, those are allowed. But we do prohibit them from doing elective declaws due to just the studies that we know and the residual pain and effect and behavior issues that we see in cats that are having elective declaws done. Teams are required to only utilize gentle control. So things like harsh restraint, scruffing and or boxing down of cats is prohibited. So that is something that I like to make teams aware of in case that is part of the culture of their practice currently. And then pain control, Michelle talked about this a little bit. Pain control is mandatory. And we do like our teams to think about anticipating what may cause a patient pain. One of the things we're really working with a lot of our certified veterinary practices now is hands-free radiology and doing a lot of sedated radiology, thinking about the fact that if you're taking orthopedic rads on something that came in limping, it's probably going to be uncomfortable for them to lay on that table and be held in a certain way. So sedated x-rays are definitely your friend. So what about international? And this is something I'm super excited about. Previously, fear-free veterinary practice certification was limited to just US and Canada. That all changed at the end of last year. At the end of 2023, we certified our first practice in the UK. Since then, we've certified an additional UK practice, a practice in the AUE, and a practice in Australia. So we are just spreading all around. We have practices enrolled from 13 different international countries right now. I will say, because we are still a US-based team, we do require that documents be submitted in English. Our virtual visit and reported patient visits must be done in English as well, or have a translator provided by the practice. And currently all our resources online are available in English. So that is something that the teams have to be aware of. But again, if they are able to take our courses, take the material, even if they want to translate it themselves and use it, but knowing that everything we offer is in English, we encourage practices to enroll because it's really exciting to see us popping up around all over the place. And then Michelle gets to review practices halfway across the globe. And Dr. Grant will too. So quickly, I know we're running short on time, but I do always like to play some games and such. So back to Slido again. We're going to run through a few things just to see, make sure everybody's been paying attention a little bit. So as you're on here, go ahead and answer. So the current veterinary practice certification standards dictate what size your exam room must be. Thoughts on that? False. Very good. Our standards do not dictate any size of exam rooms, the layout of your practice, the colors that you paint your practice, anything like that. Again, we are meant to be able to certify any practice, size, structure, shape, anything you name it, we will work with you. All right. Fear-free requires your practice to have separate species entrances. This is one I hear a lot about, that practices feel like they cannot do practice certification because they do not have a separate dog or cat entrance. Again, very good. False. We do not require it. If you have them, that's great. But if you don't, you're not going to fail. There's a lot of creative ways to separate species. There's a lot of ways to bring them in different entrances. There's a lot of ways to set your schedule so that they are not encountering each other, if at all possible. Now, again, I am a realistic person. All three of us on here are. We understand things are going to happen. A cat might interact with a dog every so often. That is not going to cause you to not become a certified practice. I'm not looking for perfection. I am looking for really good effort, people who embrace this and want to do the best. We understand that things happen. In order to enroll in the process, you must have 100% of your staff individually certified before you enroll. On Slido. False. That is correct. You cannot have any certified when you enroll. That's the nice thing about this, is your team can go through this together. You have to be committed to wanting to do this. You have to be ready to invest time in your staff for this, and ready to embrace change in your culture. But you do not have to have anyone on your staff fear-free certified before you begin this process. We are focused on creating a team culture that emphasizes fear-free in every patient interaction. I will hope that everyone gets this right after how many times I have said team culture on this webinar tonight. Let's see how we're doing. Very good, team. I'm very proud of you. Everybody give yourself a pat on the back. This is very true. If there's one thing that I will harp on always, is that fear-free makes such an impact on your team culture. Yes. It's so important. And Dr. Grant and I, both having been practice owners, can tell you that is such a huge thing for the success of your practice. Fear-free team and account managers will help support your team through the process. Absolutely, we will. We are here to see you guys succeed. That answer is true. Absolutely, 100%. I would much rather tell people that they have passed than not. So we want to help you guys do this. Your account manager can help you with your SOPs prior to submission. I feel like people think that this would be cheating in some way, shape, or form. It is not. Again, Michelle, Dr. Grant, the rest of our consultants that work as account managers, they want to help you. They want to make sure that when you have that virtual visit, that we are as impressed as they are. And as a certified veterinary practice, you may not provide feline declawing services. And I should have put in there elective. It is elective only, feline declawing services. If it is medically required, absolutely, we will not say no. But if it is just elective, we do not allow that. I want to just be clear, that is only certified practices, fear-free certified professionals. If you are just a professional, not part of a practice, that does not apply to you. We do not dictate on a doctor by doctor basis. We just say that our practices cannot, and that aligns with AAFP's stand on that as well. Very quickly, because I do know that we've run over, because I am a talker and that is what happens. We do have some great perks for being certified veterinary practices, both tangible and non. Our certified veterinary practices get a great certification kit when they complete the process. It's full of lots of offers from our industry allies. They get a beautiful plaque to put up in their practice. And they get some additional swag for their team. They also get exclusive educational content that only is available to certified practices. We are offering a really cool set of industry allied discount offers on services and products for certified veterinary practices beyond what's in their certification kit this year. We're also going to be offering discounts to our online store once it's up, back and running, with all of the great new things that we're going to have in it. And as I mentioned earlier, your staff members get discounts on pet professional certifications as well, which is really great. Plus, we have a private Facebook group, which is available to all members of certified practices. This is a great place to share success stories, maybe get support on other cases, and just kind of talk through things that only certified practices are going through. So it's a great resource for that as well. All right, guys, I know I've been talking. Those hot topics we mentioned in the beginning: burnout, retention, recruitment, staff turnover. I read through the AAHA's tech utilization guidelines recently, and all the things that they pointed out to do for your staff: empowering them, providing them continuing education, creating a culture in which they're happy and want to go to work. Fear-free addresses all of those things. We are really creating these hospitals where people want to work, where pet owners want to come to, and more importantly, where patients want to come. I got burnt out being a veterinarian because I didn't want to see patients that didn't want to see me anymore. I opened up a practice where we embraced fear-free, and the patients actually pulled their owners in to see us. And that is not, it's not lip service, guys. People hear that and they're like, yeah, right. It happens. Once you see it in action, when your whole practice is embracing it, it's different than just one or two people. It really makes such a difference for your patients, for yourself, for your staff. I know we don't have a ton of time. If people have to jump off, I totally understand. I know it's late in some areas. If you want to stay behind and ask some questions, I'm happy to answer them. I know Michelle and Dr. Grant are here as well. Lisa's been doing a great job. I've been seeing her typing in the chat away, just about answering questions as they go. I think there was a really great question that was brought up that I do want to address. Someone brought up, what happens if you don't finish the certification in that first year after you enroll in the process? That's a great question. We know that that's going to happen. The nice thing with this process is that our account managers are going to try to guide you through that process to help you achieve it by that 12-month mark. But sometimes things happen, staff changes, maybe there's something going on in your practice. Whatever happens, We do allow these practices to renew one time during that cycle. So while we would love to see you finish it in 12 months, you technically have 24 months to complete it. There's not too many practices that can't get it done in a 24-month period. If after 24 months, things are not progressing for whatever reason, we will have a heart-to-heart with your leadership and just say, hey, maybe this just needs to be on pause for right now. We want to keep you as fear-free certified professionals and as individuals. So let's just focus on that right now. And then when your team is ready, we can re-enroll you in this process, because we don't want, the last thing we want is to create more fear, anxiety, and stress in your hospital. We're here to reduce that. So there is that ability to renew. We will work with your team. So you do have technically up to 24 months to get that done. Lisa, I'm going to look in the chat and see if we have any more questions. Dr. Grant, Michelle, closing thoughts to our attendees tonight.
There were some really great questions on the board. Thank you guys for stepping up and asking those. Like we said, we know that some of them are the hard questions that nobody wants to ask, but thank you for coming forward and doing it. I'm just very excited to have this many individuals here in all different time zones all around the world that are as excited, if not more excited than we are, about bringing fear-free to your clients and your patients and your teams. It is really, really, it gives me those little warm fuzzies inside to see all you guys here. So thank you so much for coming.
Oh, I agree. I'm sitting here reading through the chat and all the wonderful questions that you guys.
I know, and everybody was great about asking them, and Lisa was so wonderful about answering them so quickly. So great teamwork on behalf of everyone. Well, I know it's after 9 o'clock on the Eastern side of things. So thank you all for joining. This webinar was recorded. It will be available after the fact. And if there were other questions that we didn't get a chance to answer tonight, please reach out to us. You can email us at practicecertification@fearfree.com. If you're interested in enrolling in practice certification, feel free to email certifyme@fearfree.com, and we'll get you enrolled. But overall, please, thank you for joining us tonight. It's always fun to spend an evening with people talking about fear-free, and I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.